Coming up next, join Dave Despain for live coverage of the 24 Hours of Daytona. Then stay tuned for live updates all day long and enjoy Roy Rogers and Dale Evans in Susanna Pass, followed by Motor Week Illustrated, live from Daytona, right here on Superstation WTBS.
The following is an exclusive presentation of TBS Sports. From the Daytona International Speedway, Superstation WTBS and Motor Week Illustrated present live coverage of the 24 Hours of Daytona. Brought to you by Chrysler Plymouth, engineered for luxury, quality, and value. Chrysler Plymouth. And by Gillette Atra, the twin blade razor with the pivoting head for a close, comfortable shave. A little advantage goes a long way. And by Cable News Network and CNN Headline News. Now you have a choice in 24-hour television news.
And a good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, from the birthplace of speed, the world center of speed, Daytona Beach, Florida. Welcome to our live 24-hour coverage of this great endurance classic. This is the 21st running of the event. I'm Ken Squire, and delighted to tell you that we'll be here through the night and on into tomorrow to bring you what I consider the most prestigious and exciting race of its kind in the world. This event is unique in American motorsports. It's an event which is an endurance contest, has some 80 cars running, and we'll be here through the night with updates and reports for you from our reporters. We hope you'll be with us until 3:30 tomorrow when it concludes. Some of the greatest luminaries in motorsport are in the field for this event. And this is some chess game here. If you make your moves early, you can be taken off the board very quickly at over 200 miles per hour. And if you play a conservative chess game, you may find yourself in checkmate long before the contest comes to conclusion. Our camera car for this event is a March, the car that Bobby Rahal drove a year ago. It'll be Larry Ranier in the car, and you're looking out of the car right now, number 88, and that will carry our camera through the event, hopefully, and we have a backup car in case that one should go down in a Chevrolet Camaro from the same team. All in all, it's going to be exciting coverage, and we hope you'll stay with us. This event is part of Daytona, and Daytona is part of the world of motorsports. Take a look at this history of Daytona. The Daytona 24-Hour Challenge is America's most grueling test of man and machine. Cars and drivers stretch to the limit and beyond in this twice round-the-clock marathon. Patterned after Le Mans, Daytona's Endurance Classic has established a tradition all of its own. The history of Daytona goes back more than 2 decades. That first race in '62, 3 hours long. A traditional Le Mans running start, and the cars then on the endurance racing map. Dan Gurney, then a young American hero on the international racing scene, led most of that race, but dramatically, his Lotus engine quit and he coasted to a stop a few feet from victory. He couldn't push the car, that would have been illegal, so he inched the car to victory by mashing the starter button with the car in gear. A popular victory with a Hollywood scriptwriter's dream ending. From that quaint beginning, the fields have grown and come to include the sleek prototype cars and a variety of exotic experimental machines. Ferrari, Porsche, Lola, BMW, nearly all the world car maker great marks have faced the challenge of Daytona. By far the most successful mark over the years has been Porsche. Porsche has won 11 of the last 13 24-hour races, including the last 6. The Porsche 935 Turbo of John Paul Sr. and Jr. won last year, leading all but 2 of the 24 hours. Through the years, so many racing greats here. Gurney, Donahue, Andretti, Rodriguez. Perhaps the greatest of them all, Hurley Haywood. Hurley Haywood and the late Peter Gregg. What a combination. They won 4 times, twice together, twice racing against each other. Haywood is back again this year to challenge for a record 5th win. The memory of Gregg goes on with his widow, Debbie, co-driving with 2 other women. A huge field this year, nearly 80 cars, about $10 million worth of exotic machinery. A fitting cast of gladiators, it seems, for the beginning of Speed Weeks 1983, the traditional 24 Hours of Daytona. The 24 Hours of Daytona, a tribute to the creative genius of William France Sr., who made all this happen, this track, and the entire feeling of Daytona for motorsport. Here with me is my co-host on so many television broadcasts, a gentleman who you've known from Indianapolis racing, from the Daytona 500, from Can-Am, Formula 5000, and one of the greatest endurance racers in the world, David Hobbs.
Oh, thank you, Ken. In fact, one of those guys in the funny baggy trousers in 1962 is myself crossing the track.
But this hasn't exactly been my luckiest racetrack, and I suppose doing this very extensive coverage, which you're getting this afternoon and tomorrow, will be at least one way of guaranteeing that I see the end of this 24-hour at least.
That's right. Many times in the past you were ready for dinner early.
I have been to dinner lots of times on the beach when I should have been out there flashing around, and the best result I had here was third with Mark Donoghue back in '71. Of course, we should have won that as well, but...
We think we have a fine cast of correspondents for you. Jerry Garrett from Motor Week Illustrated is with us, along with Jim Roller. And standing by on pit road right now is the Motor Week Illustrated editor, and with him is the three-time winner of Le Mans. He finished second here a year ago, Derek Bell.
Well, in just a moment, we'll clear out this mob of people, and the cars will hold sway on pit road. The pit's, of course, a critical element in international endurance road racing. We've assembled a formidable cast of experts to analyze the pit action, and one of them is the man who has finished twice second place here the last 2 years. Derek Bell, I know you'd like to be out there trying to win it today.
Certainly, it'd be a great opportunity to have a go, but sadly, I haven't managed to put a deal together. The one thing's for sure, I know exactly how they're feeling. These last 10 minutes are really, really very nerve-wracking, and I think that all the drivers in the cars will be very nervous, but of course, once the flag drops, they'll feel great and they'll be away.
So the tension builds. The co-driver becomes a co-announcer later as Derek Bell and I co-host Motor Week. Now back to you, Ken.
Also with us, we're delighted to have the Motor Racing Network's anchor announcer, Mike Joy, and with him from WTBS Superstation is David Kopp.
Ken, they can virtually rebuild the cars from scratch down here on pit road to the extent that the rules allow. You won't see the 14 and 15-second NASCAR pit stops here, but a minute saved on every pit stop translates to over 140 miles over the course of the 24 hours. This is David Kopp's first 24 hours, so he'll have a fresh perspective on this race.
I'm really looking forward to it, Mike. It's my first 24-hour race, the night racing, the middle part of the race. The endurance, stamina, and fatigue become factors at that point in time, and we'll be there to cover it all through the night and the wee hours of the morning.
Indeed, you'll see it all here on WTBS, the Superstation. We'll be following the competition until 3:30 tomorrow. The countdown continues toward the start of the 21st running of the 24 Hours of Daytona. The announcement has just been made to clear the pit road, and very shortly the command will be given to fire the engines to commence the 24 Hours of Daytona. Let's now take a look at the starting lineup for today's race. On the pole with a new record at over 135 miles an hour set by Bob Woollock with Claude Bellolina and Preston Hann of France is a Porsche 935. And down there with them now is Dave Despain.
The pole-sitting driver, how come you're so much faster than the rest of the field, Bob Woollock? 4 seconds advantage.
Yeah, I'm driving a very fast car, and as I told you before, this car has been designed to be a fast car on fast circuit, and this is obviously a very fast circuit.
Your strategy in the early laps?
We're not going to pull away and try to win the race on the first corner or in the first hour. We're going to drive steadily and wait for things to happen and develop, you know.
Starting the pole-sitting car, Bob Woollock.
Outside of the front row comes Rodriguez and Castellani with John Paul Jr., last year's winner and winner of 9 of 18 events in a Porsche 935. Here's Mike Joy.
Ken, we're checking in the garage area. The car is not yet on the starting grid with just about 10 minutes to go before the green flag.
Going to the third starting position, you'll see Doc Bundy with Romero and Rubino, another Porsche 935.
Doc Bundy, where's your race car?
It's on its way, and I hope it gets here in time, Dave.
You had a great run here in November in the IMSA finale. How do you feel about your 24-hour chances?
I think we'll do real good. The car is just handling beautiful. It's running like the proverbial Porsche. And if we can stay out of trouble, I think we'll be there at the finish.
Only problem is it's missing. Doc Bundy will start third.
In the fourth starting position becomes another Porsche 935 with John Osteen, Dale Whittington, Bob Aiken, who did such a great job at Le Mans and finished second here with Derek Bell just a year ago.
Bob Aiken, your car was out on the grid early. Are you anxious for the start or more concerned about survival here today?
Well, we're really ready. we've been ready all week, and we did a little warm-up this morning and found an engine leak in our race motor, so we did a quick engine change. It only took us 45 minutes, and so we're here with another motor and ready to go.
In row 3, it's still another Porsche, and there's the man everyone's talking about, Hurley Haywood, looking for his 5th win. And he is in with Al Holbert, a 2-time winner of IMSA competition, and Bruce Levin in car number 86.
It's a formidable team of drivers. Haywood, perhaps the good luck charm. He's won more 24 hours than anybody else. All 3 drivers in a final strategy meeting right now, but keep an eye on this one, number 86.
Coming next will be a Lola T600, and it is Ralph Cook with Jim Adams and John Bright in this car, and that should be formidable with that Chevrolet-powered machine.
Ralph, how is this Chevrolet engine expected to hold up over 24 hours against all the turbo Porsches?
Well, I think it'll hold up very well. My engine builder says it's the best one he's ever done. It's a little underpowered, but it's built like a tank, we hope.
Moving back to row 4, inside, the venerable Bob Tullius, who won back here in 1965, the first time he took a checker at Daytona. He's teamed with Patrick Bedard, the well-known rider, and Bill Adam, and that is a 12-cylinder Jaguar.
Bill Adam, a fascinating race car, a brand new race car. Bad luck here last fall, but you guys are starting fresh in the 24.
Yes, we're looking forward to a really good race. Unfortunately, the car last year was damaged so badly that we weren't able to repair it, so this car is a brand new one. Made some detailed changes that make the car much, much easier to drive from steering effort standpoint and braking stability and so on. We've got a relatively mild motor in it, and with the basic strength of that engine, the V12 engine, we're looking for a very, very strong finish.
Staying power may be the answer for the Jaguar. Ken?
In 1979, this was the team that did it all. Ted Field and Danny Ongaius, then, of course, Ongaius in a horrendous crash in Indianapolis. But he came back, and he won his first race here at Daytona. Field and Ongaius, real favorites to win this 24-hour jaunt.
Can this gaping hole on the grid belong to Interscope Lola? Danny Ongaius has always been an interview. He is against.
Danny Ongaius and Ted Field both a bit retiring when it comes to the business of interviews. Let's take a look at the rest of the starting field and tell you a bit about the cars. There are in this field 33 Porsches, 13 Mazdas, 10 Camaros, and then there are 3 Toyotas, a couple of Mustangs, a March, 3 Lolas are out here. 2 Aston Martins are in the field, one of them to be driven by A.J. Foyt and Darrell Waltrip, of all things. There's a big twosome to get in a little Aston Martin, David.
You couldn't get a much better deal than that.
There's the Ferrari back. That's the Ferrari that last year, the Carson Baird car, finished 6th at Le Mans. There's 5 Firebirds out here. There's a single Datsun, 6 Corvettes are back, and there's a Buick Chevron entered in the field. And there's an interesting story in one car, which comes from the 5th largest auto manufacturer in America, the Avante. You may have thought the Avante went the way of the bald eagle, or nearly has gone the way of the bald eagle. No, it's still around about as much as the eagle. They make about 200 of them a year, and one of them is here to race. There's a lot to that story. We'll be following it through the night. Joe Ruttman will be driving that car. A couple of BMWs are here, a couple of Chevy Monzas, so you have a big differential in speed. Some of these cars capable of 200, 210 miles an hour, and some of them about 130 miles per hour. That must make this race very, very tricky.
Well, of course, there's nearly 80 cars out there on this 3.8-mile circuit for a start-off, which means it's terribly crowded, and a tremendous speed differential, as you've said. And there's a lot of manufacturer interest in this sort of racing now. So we have big manufacturers, people like Toyota with full factory teams here. And we have tire manufacturers here with running street radials. So there's all sorts of variances out there, which everybody's got to be very, very careful about the whole time.
And Gene Hackman is in one of those Toyota cars, starting well back on the grid, car number 99. He is teamed with Hoshina and Sakaya of Japan for that car.
And I see perched on the roof, I thought I saw Superman a few minutes ago, so that's probably who he's after.
Getting down toward the start, Charlie Rainville had the drivers' meeting this morning. Now, what would you be telling drivers at that drivers' meeting that you went to for the past 8 years?
Well, of course, the main thing in this race is to just be very, very careful. Don't try and win it on the first corner. Don't try and win it in the first hour. You've got 24 hours out there. For the slow guys, of whom there are a tremendous amount there, you must give way to the faster cars. On the other hand, if you're in a fast car, it's no good trying to muscle your way through because you just don't need to in a race like this. And then obviously they give them all the run down the pit signals and this sort of thing. And the trouble here in the night, of course, it's very difficult to see the flags.
We'll be back for the start of the 24 hours of Daytona here on WTBS Superstation in a moment. On pit road, Mike Joy is standing by with one of the greatest names in motorsport today.
Champion Darrell Waltrip. Darrell, you're 24 hours of Daytona. What are you looking forward to here today?
I'll tell you right now, I'm nervous as I can be. My heart's pounding. And it's a strange new thing for me to be doing. And, of course, being in a race with AJ is just a thrill of my lifetime. And the few say they just did the national anthem. I'm as a Washington Redskin right now.
Is it a different feeling from the start of a stock car race here for you?
It really is. You know, being involved in a car, getting ready to start a race, and I'm not in it, is a little bit unusual. but to run in the 24-hour race, done, I have no idea what to anticipate. I look up and I say, I can't believe from now we're going to be out here still racing away and we'll only be half finished. So a lot of things are going to happen that I've never had happen to me before, and I'm just really excited about it. And AJ, he's real up.
Best of luck to you. Kevin?
I want to apologize for the breakup we're getting there on pit road. We'll try to get that situation rectified for you. A.J. Foyt and Darrell Waltrip in the same car. Who would have believed it?
Obviously, least of all, Darrell Waltrip, of course.
And right now, although a couple of engines have already fired, I believe the command is to be given by Ambassador Middendorf.
Start your engines.
The U.S. ambassador to the Organization of American States. This is an OAS event. They had a 10,000-kilometer, 6-mile run this morning as part of the festivities, and there is a major announcement about OAS, which becomes the Western Hemisphere power more and more these days in endurance racing, which will be passing along to you in the course of Motor Week Illustrated 5:35 to 6:05 today on WTBS, the Superstation. The field is about set to roll out, and we are getting ready to commence the 24 hours of Daytona from the World Center of Speed. A late update from the pits. The Danny Ungaia's Ted Field team will start but one car. They had qualified two, and the 355 V8 Chevy will not come out, but the turbo-powered V6 Chevy will start. That will be the only car that Field and Ungaia's will run. It was expected they would bring both cars out, and then if one had broken earlier, they would have continued with the other machine. But only one car is on pit road. The field is rolling down toward turn number one, an opportune moment to have you take a look at the course which these drivers will face for the next 24 hours as you watch the cars rolling out from our onboard camera car, Randy Lanier, in that machine. Field going into turn number one. Let's take a look right now what this course is all about. The road course of Daytona, 3.84 miles, begin right at the start-finish line of the tri-oval of the Superspeedway. Bob Orlick's car here, which sits in the pole, went 190 miles per hour down to about 60 miles an hour, coming through turns 1 and 2. Then onto a short straightaway, and here the speed escalates to about 140 miles per hour. They prepare for this horseshoe turn, newly named in the memory of Pedro Rodriguez this morning. This is a second-degree turn and leads to a 1,600-foot straightaway where the speed climbs to 140, sometimes 150. Then they reach the toughest part of the course, a twisting second-gear turn. A lot of shunts here at night, but usually not the kind that put a car out of a race. Here's one of the critical turns. Coming back on the Superspeedway at night, covered with water and oil, cars slip and slide and oftentimes find the concrete of the Superspeedway as they come out of the infield portion of the course and up onto the 31-degree high bank. Now they're climbing for speed, back up through the gears, 170, 180 miles per hour, and into that long, famed Daytona back straightaway. Here it's 190 to 200 miles per hour, and then as they hit turn 3 on the turbo 935 Porsches, 210 miles per hour. G-forces catch up with them here in the high banking, 31 degrees on the east end of the speedway. It brings them down to about 190 miles per hour as they come back once again and complete 3.84 miles around this Daytona road course. 1 year ago, John Paul Jr., John Paul Sr., and Rolf Stolmanen, in winning this event, traveled 2,760 miles in 24 hours, averaging better than 114 miles per hour. They completed 719 laps on this nearly 4-mile course. Pace car has them on the second straightaway now.
There you see the pace car going around the tightest corner on the course. This is second gear in the Porsche, probably down about 40 miles an hour and leading up to the penultimate corner before you get back on the high banked oval. 2 or 3 cars in the pits have had a bit of trouble already, but most of the field is out there and there's an awful lot of them when you look. This is the point where in the race the pace car will pull off. They start and finish the pace car at that point on the track because it's a bit confusing, you know, otherwise for the drivers, and that's the place they park it, right where this camera is situated. There we see Hurley Hayward, number 86, the guy that's won this race 4 times. Probably the strongest team out there, he and Al Holbert, 2 very, very experienced drivers. 24, that's Mr. Spear.
And that is our onboard camera, giving you those pictures from one of the March cars out here, Randy Lanier, at the wheel of that car, which last year was the Bobby Rahal machine in this event. We're part of the Rahal team.
There you see nothing but Lake Lloyd with the glare of the afternoon sun coming off, which is going to become a very big problem for a lot of these drivers within the next hour, hour and a half. It becomes extremely difficult as you come under the main grandstand where we're situated, right into that setting Florida sun. Nice for the sun seekers, not quite so good this afternoon. The entire field, the backstretch, and one car is already smoldering. There's a car midway back in the field which is in trouble and dropping to the inside of the track. Smoldering, it looks in decidedly bad shape. That looks about like my 24-hour efforts usually are. Oh, come, David. I've seen you here till 10 or 11 in the morning sometimes. I know. It always ends that way. That's the trouble. It's going to end that way, and better to end like that now than in about 12 hours. Getting a report on which car it is that's had trouble on the back straightaway is coming down. The report is that it's car number 85, Richard Lloyd, George Drolsom, and Jonathan Palmer of London, England. Their automobile, a 924 Porsche, going up in smoke just at the commencement of the race. They are about a mile away from the start as they enter the east end of the speedway. We're back once again in that March automobile. March has been a very fast car here in previous encounters. In fact, you drove a car similar to this 2 years ago. I did, yeah. We had the car for races other than this one, but it was an extremely fast car. And with that Chevrolet power unit, they got it tuned for longevity rather than sheer power. It could do very well here. Very quick in the infield. Safety car bringing them down out of turn 4 of the super speedway, turn 9 of the road course. And we are preparing for the start of the 21st annual 24 Hours of Daytona. The challenge is on. The field is into the tri-oval area. Bob Wallach is driving in the car that's set on the pole. He set a new record of over 135 miles per hour in qualifying on this 10-turn course, and he is away in the lead through turns 1 and 2. A relatively sedate start by the front row there, Wallach and John Paul Jr., closely followed at the moment by Doc Bundy, who I'm sure is going to want to do well in this race. But big trouble down in turn number 1. A hard crash in turn number 1 at the entry to turn 1. 4 cars are in collision just at the entry to turn 1 as the field goes through the Rodriguez turn. There are 4 cars scattered about on the bottom, and now they are pulling away. You see one car up in the wall, car number 19. I think that's the Van Every Racing car. I'm not sure, but he looks like the only one that suffered any sort of permanent damage. But as we've already heard, in the 24-hour race, they could stop, work on that car for 45 minutes, and it could still finish and do very, very well in this race. That's the Tisdale car and Lance Van Avery. They come out of Charlotte, North Carolina, Jacksonville, Florida. The other cars were able to continue their way around, and out in front, Bob Wallach trying to set the pace. And the pace car's gone out of the pit road. Whether it's going to, in fact, have a pace lap while they clear up some of that debris down in turn 1, I don't know. Field goes up on the high banking, west end of the track for the first time. Doc Bundy taking second place away from John Paul Jr. and about to try and take first place away from Bob Wallach. Battle is for the lead in the back straightaway. Wallach is on the inside, and number 19 is away. Number 19 has restarted and fired and continues on its way. And I believe the track is totally clear now in turns 1 and 2. Meanwhile, up in the banking of turns 3 and 4 of the super speedway, turn 9 of the road course, Bob Wallach is in front. And Doc Bundy comes up on the outside to try and slingshot past as they cross the stripe for the first time, first flying lap. But Bob Wallach is maintaining that lead. Aiken has taken his Porsche Carrera, rather his Porsche Turbo 935, into 3rd position. The red Porsche just behind these 2 leaders is Bob Aiken, who had 2nd place here a year ago when he was teamed with Derek Bell. John Paul in car number 1, the blue car, taking it very uncharacteristically for him, very coolly, and he's about to be passed by Hurley Hayward as well. And right behind them is the Jaguar, which is doing extremely well, number 44. That could be a sleeper in this race. There's Wallach going down that very fast infield straightaway for the fastest and probably the most difficult part of this track, this left-hand sweeper, which he's just turning into now. Very, very difficult at night. And somebody's had trouble just at the end of that sweeper, leaving a big cloud of smoke. It's in fact the number 19 car. I think it must have a flat tire, and he's struggling to get round to the pits to rectify the damage. Yes, there it is in front. Hobbling along. He's got to get back to the pits to rectify that damage. He can't fix it out on the track. The second place automobile is Doc Bundy of Gainesville, Georgia, Pepe Romero of Miami, Florida, and Frank Rubino. And they hold on to that second place as they chase the very fleet. The man who sat on the pole a year ago and did it again this year has broken his own record each time. And that is Wallach of France. He is teamed with Claude Bellolina in that automobile, and they will be very, very difficult to reckon with.
And the Jaguar has now moved up to 4th spot. Maybe Bob Tulis is going to make an effort to lead this race for Jaguar, which would be obviously a tremendous thing for that mark. The last time they did very well in a major 24-hour race, of course, was their succession of wins back in the 50s.
And the Jaguar is closing on the third place automobile, Aiken. Correction. Jaguar has slipped back a spot, and it's still Aiken in third. And as they come around, the Jag holds on to that 5th position. Tullius is in that car, Hurley Haywood just in front.
Having a pretty fast and furious race at this early stage of a 24-hour race, I must admit.
5 automobiles battling for first place in the 24 hours of Daytona, all twin-turbo 935 Porsches. But Aiken closes. Aiken trying to move in and take second position.
John Paul Jr. is at the back of that group, just taking his time, and right behind him is Danny Ongaias, who I thought, I'm sure if they'd started both cars, he would have really had to go for the lead to be a bit of a hare, to let Ted bring the number 0 car, the V8 engine car, and try and finish the race with it.
The Doc Bundy, number 47, stays right behind this automobile in first place. Number 6, Preston Henn's car from Pompano Beach, Florida, with 2 of the great French drivers, Bob Woollach and Claude Bellolina. Endurance racers, very special kind of racers. And David Hobbs, one of the best.
Yeah, well, Bob and I drove together here in November, actually, and we were leading the race when I handed over to him, if you get my meaning. And shortly after that, the engine broke. So obviously, I hope for his sake it doesn't happen again today, but we were having a good run here back in November. The amiable, brilliant Bob Wallach, as he's always described in the press. There we see him in the corner, smiling with his Western hat and eating garlic cloves.
We have the word that 2 cars are going to be penalized a lap for jumping the start, perhaps creating some of that confusion that took place in turn number 1 and sent 4 cars spinning and skittering down across the grass. All of them were able to continue. 2 of them are being worked on pit road at the present time. Those cars include car number 41, the Rusty and Scott Schmidt car from Oglesby, Illinois. And the car number 78 is also being administered to right now, which is the Vicky Smith, Scott Flanders, Klaus Bitteroff entry. It's part of that action that took place in the very opening corner in the very first lap.
Well, as you can see, they were both fairly well down the grid, and that is relatively typical. Bob Wallach's last lap was 1:52.6, which is a very, very conservative pace, although they look as if they're having a pretty hot race out the front there. All those front 6 cars are, in fact, taking it relatively steady. They could maintain that pace, hopefully, all day and all night. An interesting little battle developing behind them. The 3 cars immediately behind them are 2 of the GTO cars with Billy Hagan and Terry Labonzi, and A.J. Foyt has moved ahead of one of those cars in the car number 11. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on in this race.
Foyt definitely trying to pull through here, and he's picked up about 3 positions from the commencement of the event. Got another car smoldering going down the short infield straightaway.
That is another Porsche. That's car number 24. That is Mr. Spear from Tampa, I believe. He did so well in the Camel GT Endurance Championship last year.
The Pegasus 3 racing team having trouble with one of their turbos. Those turbos are very temperamental things. I see a lot of them going away.
Yes, I can vouch for that.
Back straightaway, still the Preston Hen car in front. Bob Woollach at the controls. Woollach staying up in front and moving into second spot goes Bob Aiken, Dale Whittington, John Osteen, with Bob Aiken of Ossining, New York, currently driving, and he's pulling for the lead.
Bob Aiken's taking the lead.
Here comes a new leader. It is now Aiken taking first, the battle for second as they come down across the tri-oval area. Challenge is on. Wallach stays there, but Hurley Haywood moves in as they go to the first turn. There's Haywood on the inside, trying for second place. Hurley Haywood low, Bob Woollach on the outside. Haywood trying to move through.
And there's the Jaguar going through on the very inside there, the green and white number 44. I'm sure they'll all be making plenty of room for themselves at this stage of the race. It would be absolutely asinine, of course, to go pushing each other off
at this early stage.
Jaguar making a real run for third place. Tullius has moved the V12 up to third behind two of the twin-turbo 935s. It stays up in front. Right now into the front-running position is the Bob Aiken car. Up to second is still Warlick, and back to third is the Jaguar, Bob Tullius. There you see the standings in the 24 Hours of Daytona, with now 5 laps complete, as Aiken, with his Whittington Osteen teammates, running in first. Bob Tullius has taken the V12 Jaguar to second place. A real surprise, David Hahn.
And yes, it is a surprise. On the other hand, that car is a very strong and a very powerful car. But just look at that traffic they're getting involved in too at this early stage of this race. Up there in the deep shadow on that west banking as the sun starts to set behind it. Out again into the bright sunshine on the main straightaway. Sun behind them now. But as they go through the east banking, from now on, for the next, well, couple of hours, it's going to start to get very tricky as they come off that. And the Jaguar is making a play for the lead and has taken it, in fact.
Bob Tullius has put Jaguar in front in the 24 Hours of Daytona. Can they sustain it? It's been many a year since Jaguar at Le Mans was when they last, and when they first really brought out their performance colors. And those green and white colors are back on the point right now. Here's Bob Tullius across the line, the longtime racer out of Falls Church, Virginia, who's driven for many of the British Leyland teams. And this, a car of his own, a prototype automobile. The red car right behind him continues to be Bob Aiken in the Porsche 935, which was second a year ago.
And just look at that traffic as they try to thread their way through it. 80-odd cars, well, 79 cars out there. And there we see number 24 on pit road. It's been administered to by the fireman. I don't think it's actually on fire. I think it's just a fire in the turbo. But it's been smoking badly the last couple of laps. Anyway, just to make sure they're dousing plenty of fluid and foam on it.
That is the Spear car, number 24, that you saw on pit road for just a moment. The battle is up in front on the point as Jaguar and Porsche, England and Germany, go at it here.
I happen to know that the managing director of Jaguar Cars is here in America this week, and he's come down here to watch this race, so no doubt he'll be extremely pleased to see this product of his company, and of course combined with Bob Tullius out of Virginia, doing so well so far in his 24 hours, although there's 23 hours and 45 minutes to go yet.
Well, there's Tullius coming up out of turn 7, back onto the super speedway portion of the course. And what a surprise as Jaguar goes out in front. There he is, Bob Tullius, who used to work up in Rochester, New York in the public relations business, and one day stepped out of his office and became a racer and met with almost immediate success. Came here with a little Dodge in 1965 and won a road race, but at that time was one of the smaller events prior to the annual Daytona 500.
Old Bob Tullius and I drove a Triumph Spitfire at Le Mans in 1964 together. He's a very capable, very experienced driver. And his main co-driver, Bill Adam from Toronto, Canada, is also very good. Pat Bedard, who is their third driver, hasn't got the experience in professional racing that these two have, but he is nevertheless very confident racer at the club level, and I suppose it'll depend how the car is doing as to how much time they actually give him in the car.
The Jaguar is getting a bit of an interval here in the early going. The Jaguar now out by about 7 seconds, which is hardly a hair breadth in endurance racing, and into second has moved Hurley Haywood. Haywood has taken the Bruce Levin, number 86, up into second place. Remember that Haywood is trying for his 5th success here in the 24 hours.
Our pole winner, Bob Warlick, meanwhile, is back in 4th spot, but at this stage of the game, it's all really pretty irrelevant who's doing what and where. But they seem to be setting a relatively fair clip. They're lapping at about 1 minute 52, which is around about 125, 128 mile-an-hour mark.
They've been confident all week long that they could run well. Apparently they have elected to come out and push it hard from the very top of the race. Another driver in trouble on pit road, and that is, I believe, one of the M1s, one of the BMW cars.
Well, there's a number of cars on pit road at the moment. That car number 38 is also in the pits. He is Roger Mandeville, a very, very strongly fancied runner in that GTU class. Roger Mandeville, Amos Johnson, Danny Smith in a Mazda RX-7. That's a very early unscheduled stop for them. But all is well, they're pulling out.
Seven laps have now been completed. 7 laps are down, and Jaguar has broken a little bit of that pole which BMW has tried to break once in a while at this racetrack.
You're right. It's one of those races that's so important for these manufacturers to do well, but of course all racing is very expensive, and getting them to commit enough funds to do these jobs properly. As we go through the traffic there,
Haywood making
very
a move.
hairy.
Hurley Haywood going for first place, and he's taking it away from the Jaguar. The Porsche down the inside of Hurley Haywood, and he goes into first. That drops the number 44 Jaguar. Whoa, and in trouble is that number 82, and almost taking a piece out of the Jag. That's Joe Verde car, a Mazda RX-7. Just a little offline in turns 1 and 2.
I think that caught Joe Vardy a bit by surprise, because his car bobbled really badly through turn 2. And Vardy is an extremely experienced driver, has won many of those champion RS races, and has done well in this smaller class.
Bob Bullock is back in the 4th position. Currently in 5th is Doc Bundy, who you saw right up on top in those first 2 laps. Now he's settled back and is willing to ride in 5th position.
Well, of course, there's 2 or 3 really good reasons for running just a bit slower in a race like this. Obviously, tyre wear is important. Brake wear is important. You keep the fuel consumption down so you don't have to make so many pit stops. Plus, of course, you just keep engine and gearbox wear and tear to an absolute minimum, which is the real key.
Hurley Haywood taking over, and the Jag looks like it may be getting ready for a small counterattack here early in the going. We move up toward a half-hour mark on this event. 24 hours of Daytona, live reports throughout the period here on Superstation WTVS as we follow a battle between Jaguar and Porsche at this moment. Hurley Haywood, who has tasted victory here in this 24-hour endurance contest in 1973, 75, 77, and 1979, is now leading with his teammates Bruce Levin and Al Holbert waiting on pit road. And the big surprise is Bob Tullius has put a V12 Jaguar into 2nd position in this endurance contest, which you're watching live on WTVS, the Superstation. And there is one of the superpowers of American road racing, probably one of the best drivers in the business today of endurance competition, Hurley Haywood, originally out of Chicago, Illinois, leading this event.
Well, he's certainly had a very successful long-distance career, winning this race 4 times and winning Le Mans once with Edgar Barth and Jackie Hicks. So, obviously, Hurley Haywood is a man to watch. His co-driver, Al Holbert, his father, Bob Holbert, was a very successful American race driver as well. They make an extremely strong pair. I suppose, again, if you want to be the weak link in their chain, is the car owner, Bruce Levin, but it's his toy, so obviously at some stage of the game he must play with it. The GTU lead at the moment is Jack Dunham and Jeff Klein in car number 66. They qualified way down in 43rd spot, and they're climbing up to the field and leading their class now. There we see one of the Mustangs, 001. That's the Firestone shod car with the street radial tires. Their main aim, of course, is just to finish this 24-hour race. There's the leader, Hurley Haywood, car number 86. As you can see, that has a slightly different shaped body to 2 or 3 of the other 935s, Porsche 935s that are here. They have a longer tail, and this is all to assist them right here. Down this long backstretch, you've got nearly 2.3 miles of basically flat-out motoring. So the slipperier the car, the better it is. You know, you gain more speed going through these bankings and down the straights fast than you do on the infield, on this tight infield course. So this has a long tail. Bob Wallett's car has a long tail. I see that John Paul Jr. and Doc Bundy have opted for more normal Porsche 935 bodywork.
10 laps, 38 miles complete here, and we have had more leaders in the early going than I can ever recall. We had, first of all, a man who had set on the pole, pulling out and really putting some incredible laps on the track, Bob Bullock. He was overtaken by Aiken. Briefly, Hurley Haywood had a shot at it. Bob Tullius has been out in front, and now Hurley Haywood once again has command of this race.
And there we see the 4 cars lying very closely bunched for 2nd spot, led by the Jaguar. Bob Aiken has moved back into 3rd.
Let's go to the pits and check with Dave Despain. Audio Gremlin has Dave Despain by the throat. The GT underclass right now, that's about 150 cubic inch motors, has a Mazda RX-9 leading. Jack Dunham, Jeff Klein, and John Compton's car is leading in the under 2.5 liter category, a special category for the smaller cars in this race.
Hurley Haywood swings through that last corner back onto the banking. This can be very tricky at night. It's a very flat turn which turns onto the banking. So you have a rapid change in the road surface and also the loading on the car. And a car going through that turn just scrapes the wall. So this can be very tricky at night. Bad visibility, and it's a bit rough too.
Now these cars on the banking, the visibility out of these cars is incredibly poor.
Oh yeah, because you're sitting so low and the windscreen is a relatively good rake, and unless you have a hole cut in the roof, it's very difficult to see round the corner. It's not very difficult, you can't see round the corner. Which at night can be a bit off-putting because you can only see just that little bit of road where your headlights are shining.
Back across the start-finish line and completing 12 laps is Hurley Haywood. The GT Over category, which is another American class of cars. Figure this, Joe Ruttman, who is teamed with Herb Adams, is currently leading, and he is driving the Avanti, number 28. The Avanti, oh, that's a strange beast. It's actually, it looks like an American short-track stock car. And most of the sports car folks here think that's exactly what it is. There's been a heated debate about it, but right now it's leading in GTO and could move well up in the overall finish before 24 hours has been completed.
Well, there are a number of Porsche 935s here this year. Slightly strange driver pairings on a number of those cars, and it could be that we see a GTO car win this race overall for the first time. Not terribly likely, but it just could.
The 1971 and 72 IMSA champion. That's where it all began for him. Hurley Haywood getting through the lap traffic and staying out in front. Let's go back to Dave Despain.
With us is Bob Gerritsen. Bob, your day got off to a very unfortunate and unusual start. What happened?
Well, we were sitting in the grid waiting for the start. With the 3-minute signal just went up, and some Porsche goes past us and takes the door right off the side of our car. Talking to the driver.
What'd you do?
Well, we rushed down here to the pit and do some tie wraps and some bolts and put the door back on.
You're back in the race now. Do you think it'll hold together?
1 lap down. We said to start a lap down, but it's 24 hours, so I think we can get back there.
Did you get his license number? Did you get his license number?
Yeah, number 50, I think it was.
Bob Gerritsen. Bad start. Back to you, Ken Squire.
Bob Gerritsen out there after trouble in the early going. Still, Hurley Haywood pulling away. And he now has himself an 8-9 second interval over the second place automobile as he continues to draw away. Haywood beginning to show a little domination here on this first hour, the 24 hours of Daytona, as the former IMSA champion has his hands full with lap cars in the early going.
And Bob Wallach in the pole sitting car has in fact moved back in the second spot. There we
14 laps, 53 miles into the 24 hours of Daytona, and it is Hurley Haywood in a Porsche twin-turbo 935 in first. And now up into second spot, there's been a change in the positions with the Bob Wallach car finding itself a second place, and nesting in third is Bob Aiken. Meanwhile, dropping back is car number 44. That machine has dropped back, and on the move up through the field is car number 11, A.J. Foyt. He finds himself in 10th place with one of the Aston Martin cars. A.J. is on the move. His replacement behind the wheel in the next drivership will be Darrell Waltrip, the two-time NASCAR Grand National champion, who comes back here in 2 weeks for the $1 million Daytona 500.
I'm sure he'll make more in 2 weeks than he will today. That's for dead sure. And he'll make it an awful lot quicker as well. But this might be good fun for him, you know. Teach him all those rudimentary fine points of real racing ball, that gear shifting and that sort of stuff, you know.
In the GTO class, Joe Ruttman is in first, Terry Labonte is in second, and Gene Felton is currently in the third position. In the GT underclass, under 2.5 liters at the present time, it is the Mazda of Joe Verde in first, with Jack Dunham in the second position. Overall, Hurley Haywood stays up on top. The car number 28 that is being driven at the present time by Joe Ruttman is running 7th overall on the field. That car, which was built by Ray Dillon, a stock car builder out of the Midwest. And a lot of the sports car people think it should be on a stock car track.
Well, when you consider the relatively strong amount of GT prototypes and cars, for that car to be running a 7th spot, it's not too shabby at all.
Now there's Preston Henn's car, number 6. That's the second place automobile. the Bob Wallach car, and right behind him comes the Bob Aiken Porsche 935.
There we see it. There again you see another long-tailed car, which is built specifically to race mainly just here at Daytona and, of course, at Le Mans in France, where they also have a very, very, very long straight. The Ralph Kent Cook Lola, number 10, is coming into the pits. That's a rather early stop for him.
That car had been running in 8th position. It looks like the Lola had scraped the wall as it comes down pit road.
It does indeed. The number 10 is definitely rubbed out.
And in very close proximity here, you see the Bob Wallach number 6, and here comes the Porsche 935 of Bob Aiken right behind him, moving back onto the super speedway portion of the course.
Most of these cars are about halfway through their first stint. The regulations call for 120 liters of fuel, which is roughly, whatever it is, 32 gallons, American gallons, US gallons. And these cars, the Porsche 935s and the Jaguar and the Lolas, all run for just about an hour, somewhere between 55 minutes and an hour, depending on the sort of track. Here, I would expect them to stop at about the 55-minute mark.
Hurley Haywood staying out in front, and as usual, gathering up a bit of an advantage, as he has in the past when he won on 2 occasions with Hurley Haywood. He was able to pull away in the early going and then stay on it. One of those races, he was in the pits for 45 minutes and then came back and tasted victory. Here he is, still very much in command of the Bruce Levin car that comes out of the northwest of the United States. Haywood, now out of Jacksonville, Florida, leading here in the 24 Hours of Daytona. Will he be the first man to ever win this event 5 times?
Who knows? But if anybody knows the bumps, the twists, the places to be, the places not to be on this track, it's old Hurley Haywood. Mark Van only lives 50 miles up the road at Jacksonville.
Getting down to the 15th lap, 17th lap, upcoming. Join us again in 30 minutes as we continue our round-the-clock coverage. We'll be back with more from the Daytona International Speedway.
At Daytona International Speedway, a classic battle of sports car endurance is well into its 8th hour now. 240 laps, 922 miles complete in the 24 Hours of Daytona. And here's the way they're running in the night. The surprise car, the March with the Chevy engine up front. The comeback car, the pole sitter Bob Wallach, after replacing a turbocharger, has thundered back into 2nd spot. There's another story developing there. The Jim Adams, Jack Kent Cook car. They had hit the wall at 200 miles an hour in the first hour, fixed the car, tumbled in the standings, got all the way back up to 3rd. Now they've fallen back to 5th, and they're on pit road with some additional problems. So it's been an interesting and an exciting race. In the first 5 positions, a variety of equipment. The Chevrolet March up front, a Porsche running in the 2nd spot, a Chevy Lola. The Chevy Lola has fallen from 3rd back to 5th, as we say, a Porsche and a Mazda rounding out the top 5. So it's been a fascinating race. The lead car now piloted by Randy Lanier, and just a few minutes ago, Ken Murray climbed out of that car to go get some well-deserved rest, and our Jerry Garrett caught up with him for this visit.
We're here in the pits with Ken Murray, who's just gotten out of the lead car. Ken, how is it out there tonight?
It's a little smoky from all the campfires, but we're just trying to hold the pace down. We're off our pace about 6 seconds. We know we're that much in front of everybody. We'll just wait until in the morning. If we need to, we'll pick up the pace later through the night or early in the morning.
You're getting very good gas mileage, I understand.
Very good gas mileage. That's our biggest thing. And I stayed in for a 2-hour session when we had a caution so we could make up a little more time and help us a bunch. And I think Randy's going to stay in this time for 2 sessions. And that way we can make up, 7 or 8 seconds stop and go 2 hours apiece instead of, the 1 hour.
You have to be very pleased with the way the car is running. Are you surprised that it's in the lead at this point?
Yeah, not really. I drove the March factory car last year for the last 6 races, and we were in the top 3 all the time. I don't know the factory crew's here with us this year, and these boys can really prepare a car. You got to hand it to the people that build the car. And I just piled around there, but without the car and the help, we could never get it done.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Thank you.
Well, Ken Murray's strategy would seem to make a lot of sense at this point. The Lanier, Murray, and Walters team holding a 4-lap advantage with 8 hours down. There is your leader, high on the banking at nearly 200 miles an hour. The 24 Hours of Daytona continues on Superstation WTBS after this message.
Plymouth, engineered for luxury, quality, and value.
From the 24 Hours of Daytona, you are watching live the car which is third overall and leading in the GTO category of the 24 Hours of Daytona. Rick Knoop is at the wheel, the gentleman from Mission Viejo, California, in a Mazda RX-7, leading the GTO category and third overall in the race. Then in the second position is Diego Feble's car, a Porsche. Running third is Ernesto Sorda, also in a Porsche.
Well, the GTO car, as you can see there, the GT category, whether it's overall under 2 litres, is a much simpler car. It doesn't have the wildly exotic bodywork, great big long tail, very big wide fenders and wide wheels and tyres. The engine modifications are much more strict. The gearbox is much more normal. The whole car is a much cheaper, simpler form of racing. And of course, we get some very good racing, and it's absolutely miraculous. This GTO car is right up in third spot overall.
This car is running 25 laps down from the leader overall in the event, number 6, which is now A.J. Foyt, who is still in the car. We'll be back with more shortly. The 24 Hours of Daytona continues on Superstation WTBS after these messages. A.J. Foyt leading overall in the Bob Willick, Claude Vallalina car. Preston Hen entry. A few moments ago, I inadvertently said there were 3 hours to go, much less than that. Approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes left to the conclusion of this event. Let's quickly go to Mike Joy on pit road.
Can't hear a very tired bunch of guys. Claude Vallalina, Preston Hen, and Bob Wallach, the co-drivers with A.J. Foyt in the lead car. Bob, have you slept at all during the 24 hours?
Oh, I didn't sleep at all, but I never sleep during 24-hour races, and I've done about 20 so far.
When A.J. Foyt was in the pit about 20 minutes ago, you and he had a good laugh. What was that about?
Well, he asked me, he had already had only 1 session, and he asked me if I wanted to drive the car. And I said, no, you can have another 5 because you have to make your money, you know.
So nobody really wants to get in the car, you're going to leave him out there?
No, he's going to come in now, and I'm going to drive for the finish, I think.
You will finish?
I hope so. I hope the car will finish. If the car finishes, I would drive it.
They're very tired, but they're a very happy group right here. They could bring this car to victory lane. Back upstairs to you.
Thank you, Mike Joy. 584 laps have been completed, 2,242 miles. Speed is down to 99 mile an hour average at the present time as A.J. Foyt of Houston, Texas continues to lead here in the 24 Hours of Daytona, David.
And it's a pretty wet and slushy. Look at those puddles of water there as she goes into turn 1. A very slippery part of the track, but A.J. really playing it cool here with a 9-lap lead.
99 mile an hour average. This could be the slowest 24.
It certainly is getting down to it. In fact, the slowest 24-hour race was a 99 point something way back in the late 60s.
So A.J. Foyt is leading. He has dominated for the past several hours. 7 hours he's been out in front of that car, along with Bob Wallach. Right now, let's go back to Boston Garden. Standing by is John Stern.
International Speedway, Superstation WTBS, and Motor Week Illustrated present live coverage of the 24 Hours of Daytona. Brought to you by Chrysler Plymouth, engineered for luxury, quality, and value. Chrysler Plymouth. And by Gillette Atra, the twin blade razor with the pivoting head for a close, comfortable shave. A little advantage goes a long way. And by Cable News Network and CNN Headline News. Now you have a choice in 24-hour television news.
And a good afternoon. I'm Ken Squire here at the Daytona International Speedway. The 3-time Le Mans winner Derek Bell is with me, and David Hobbs, the longtime endurance champion, ready to bring you the final 5 minutes of the competition and then meet the heroes of the largest, most prestigious sports car race in the Western Hemisphere. There you see car number 6 on its way to presumably victory here. The Preston Hen car now being driven by Bob Wallach, German-born, now living in France. He set the record in qualifying at over 135 miles an hour. He's back at the controls now after A.J. Foyt drove through the morning hours and did it beautifully. As you can see, they're playing a conservative hand now. They back down the pace considerably in the final moments. There was an unscheduled pit stop adding to the drama in the past several minutes, and Mike Joy stood by to give us this report.
The car came on pit road without warning. They are refueling it, but the problem is under the deck lid in the engine compartment. It appears that the fan belt has broken on the car. A mechanic is reaching in, trying to replace it.
Water temperature's gone up.
Once again, here at the 24 Hours of Daytona, as you're watching this replay of that moment when they had a belt problem, that same car is in the same situation. Car number 6, the leader, is back on pit road as the minutes run out. Now, Derek Bell, let me ask you, what's the situation here? How do they decide a race like this?
Well, it appears over here in the States that it's the car that in fact completes the biggest number of miles during the 24-hour distance, as opposed to Le Mans, where it's the first car over the line that covers the longest distance within 8 minutes.
You are watching live car number 6 come back on the track. Earlier, they had a belt problem, which is what Mike Joy was giving that report on about 15 minutes back, and then they came in for one final moment. What were they doing, just racing this thing here, David?
Well, I think he must have a balance problem, because in the last 5 minutes they've changed the right rear tire, and then they just changed the left front tire.
Now the report is
obviously it can't be terribly important at this stage, but...
report is a bad left tire, left front tire.
The problem is, you see, the track is dried out. They're using the really sticky drain tires, and on the back parts of the circuit where the water runs off, these tires don't like it very much.
Second place car is number 88, 7 laps down the march. This car entered right here from Daytona Beach. Bobby Rahal drove it a year ago. Randy Lanier is at the car's keyboard now, and he's doing a magnificent job bringing this car around. A Chevrolet-powered machine, 355 V8 Chevy, and that car looks like it's headed for second place with no problems.
Yeah, well, there's just 5 minutes to go, so if they play their cards right, they'll obviously just stooge around here and only be just 2 laps.
Approximately 2 minutes, they're reporting to us now, left in the race. Just about 2 to go, 2 to 4 minutes. As they come by the flag stand here, they will get a flag indicating that the time is running out.
Well, they're definitely going to finish in the next 5 minutes sometime.
That's for sure. Derek Bell, how does one feel right now at the end of 24 hours when they're in the cockpit?
Well, I know exactly how number 88 feels, because I've been second here twice before.
Last year and the year before?
Last year and the year before. It's very exhilarating. I mean, but there's nothing like winning. There's nothing like a winner. So it's obviously exhilarating yet disappointing when you're so close, having led it like they have. I think they've done a wonderful job as a private amateur team.
Physically, where are you at after 24 hours, David Hobbs?
Well, I haven't finished as many races today, but I can tell you it's very, very tiring out there at this stage of the race.
We'll be back with more and the finish of the 21st running of the 24 Hours of Daytona after these messages from the Superstation WTBS. 3 pit stops in the last 10 minutes on the leader. Mike Joy, why?
Here's the tire that came off Bob Wallach's car. It still has plenty of tread. The weights are still taped on it, so it wouldn't have been out of balance. Right now, the track is a little too dry for these rain tires. It's a soft compound rubber, but the track's still too wet for the dry slick tires. Bob Wallach with victory in sight, though, taking no chances. Back to you.
Coming down through the tri-oval. Headed for the tri-oval is car number 6, the Preston Hen car, still in the banking area, excuse me. As we get down to the finish, then there is one more lap. He has just gone through the tri-oval, and he is now into his final lap. Bob Wallach will be looking for his first time as a winner in the 24 Hours of Daytona. The same is true for A.J. Foyt and for Claude Bellolino.
And unfortunately, it's not true for me. But I'm sure that Bob will be very happy. He and I raced here just only 8 short weeks ago in the IMSA season finale race, and we drove together, and we didn't have quite this luck in a mere 3-hour sprint where we dropped out quite close to the finish. 2 of the top 10 will be Chevrolet-powered cars. 6 of the top 10 finishers are Porsche-powered automobiles, including the winner, and for the 7th straight year since BMW did it with Fitzpatrick, it will be Porsche. Again, the overall winner in the 24 Hours of Daytona. From here, these cars will move on to Miami on February 27th, and then, of course, in March, the 12 Hours of Sebring.
Two Mazdas are also in the top 10. We should mention that Rick Nuke is still holding on in third, doing a magnificent job with that RX-7 car, the rotary-powered machine. There's your leader, the Preston Hen car, Bob Woolek, who did a magnificent job bringing the car from way back in 15th position, moving it all the way back up and putting it in the lead 2 laps in front before he turned the car over to A.J. Foyt at that time, very unhappily, but now they seem to be very amiable.
I'm sure tonight will be a night of joy, but he was distinctly put off when AJ took over the car in the rain because he felt that AJ hadn't raced in sports car racing for a long time and hadn't raced in the rain for years.
The crowd is all in the infield, estimated at over 50,000, and they're waiting. There's the pit crew waiting. Final time down the back straightaway here at the Daytona International Speedway for car number 6 into the banking. Tagging along a car that is going to make it all the way to the finish. Car number 47, the Rubino car. That's a Porsche Turbo, running well back at the present time. Being shown, Doc Bundy is in that car at the present time. It is in 11th position. Checkered flag is about to fall. And the 24 Hours of Daytona is again won by Porsche. It is done this time in the name of Bob Woolek, Claude Bellolina, and Supertech's A.J. Foyt, who stepped in, replaced Preston Hen at dawn, and drove this car through the rain, turning the fastest lap that was turned in the machine while it was pouring here.
There we see Claude Ballolina and the crew from Alvin Springer's shop out in California, A.J. Foyt there. And of course, Preston Hen himself will be ecstatic because he comes from down in Miami. He's been a boat racer, powerboat racer for a long time, and just very few years ago, like 4 years ago, he started car racing, so he'll be ecstatic.
I think it's a great credit to Alvin Springer and the Andal crew because they've been in the doldrums.
We'll be back with the Victory Lane celebration. We'll meet the winners in the various categories of this great 24 Hours of Daytona in a moment. Right now, let's pause for these messages from the Superstation, WTBS, bringing you coverage live of the 24 Hours of Daytona. The name of the game is endurance, being able to go the distance. 79 started, 50 retired. The other 29 can be deemed victors, however they came across. Waiting now, second place car is number 88, about to complete his last lap of this race. What a magnificent effort for Randy Lanier in a Chevrolet-powered March. Now car number 6 making its way to Victory Lane, where Dave Despain is standing by. 618 laps complete since yesterday at this hour. 2,373 miles have been completed for car number 6. Led since lap 440. The time of the race, 24 hours, 1 minute, 27 seconds. And now into Victory Lane moves the Preston Hen car. Certainly the biggest victory of his career for Claude Bellolina as well. A.J. Foyt has tasted a few here and there. Bob Woolek has had his share of great victories in the endurance contests of Europe. And
well,
here,
I don't think Bob's ever won a 24-hour race.
Let's go to Dave Despain. To Dave Despain in Victory Lane.
Bob Woolek has climbed out of the car, the winner of the 24 Hours of Daytona. It is an Anglo-French effort. 2 Frenchmen and 2 Americans have brought this car to Victory Lane first. Bob Woolek, you sat on the pole yesterday and said this was the perfect car for a fast racetrack. It was obviously good for 24 hours as well.
Yeah, we had a few problems, but overall we were lucky to get away with it, and obviously we were very happy to have won this race.
Early in the race, you lost a turbocharger, fell some 12 laps down in the end. That is about the same as your margin of victory. Did you ever feel that it had gotten away from you, that perhaps you'd fallen too far back?
Well, no, because the problems occurred very early in the race, and 24 hours, a long way to go, and we had plenty of time to recover from this disagreement. We never lost the, I can't find the right word.
You were confident to the end. There were some harsh words in the night, the disagreement that you mentioned, a surprise co-driver. You and AJ had words, then later had a laugh together, and apparently ended up friends as well as winners. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was a bit worried because AJ didn't know the car. He didn't even know if we had 4 gears or 5 gears. He didn't know the buttons and the lights, and at this time he was going to drive. It started to rain, and this car is not easy to drive, but AJ got away with it, and I'm happy he has been with us. I think it's a nice thing for us and for him.
You're quite red-eyed. You've not slept during this race, have you?
Well, I didn't sleep at all.
Congratulations to you, Bob.
Thank you.
Bob Wallach has brought home the winning car here, teamed with A.J. Foyt, Claude Bellolina, and the car owner, Preston Hand. Back to you, Ken.
It is not to the fleetest, it is to the most endurable. This race the slowest in the 24-hour history at 98.781 mile per hour average. This race was won by car number 6. And now let's go with the also-ran. Mike Joy is standing by.
They're not really also-rans, Ken. They had a tremendous drive and led over 1,000 miles of this race, the Chevrolet-powered barge. Terry Walters, you folks look to have things your way, but it looks like the rain really put a damper in your plans.
Well, we thought we had all our strategy worked out. The only thing we didn't allow for was rain. The car was atrocious in the rain. I spun it twice in one session. Then the engine started to go away with us. We were only running on about 4 cylinders for a good 3 hours, and that had to be the downfall of our try to win this thing.
You look beat.
Oh, I'm exhausted. My shift hand, I don't even want to shake hands with my gear shift hand. It was so sore. My right shoulder is a disaster from all the left-hand turns and up against that hard seat. It's indeed an endurance race.
A lot of people figured the prototypes would not last, and indeed many of them didn't. You proved them wrong.
Yeah, I only wish we could have beaten the Porsche. That's what we really worked for.
There's always next year.
Well, we'll try it again.
Terry Walters, back to you, Ken.
The margin of victory was 6 laps, 1 minute, 15 seconds, by which Porsche beat the Chevrolet-powered March. The ceremony continues in Victory Lane, and we'll be back with more after this message from Superstation WTBS. Here at the Daytona Speedway, they're beginning to congregate in Victory Lane. We'll be meeting the under 2.5-liter category as well as the GTO winners. Dave Despain lining them up right now. This race had its credentials imprinted right back in the very first year that it was run. Then it was a 3-hour contest, and the man who won it is another of the great names in American motorsport. Jim Roller filed this report.
What do you recall from the 1962 Continental?
I remember that they changed the rules right after that race because it was kind of dangerous. We were up in the shade, and it was a 3-hour race, and the engine broke about a minute and a half before the end of the race, and I had about a 2-minute lead. So I pulled up right before the start-finish line, and when they finally waved their checker after the end of 3 hours, I just turned left and rolled down the banking, and that was it. Still won it.
Your career, this race, have come a long way in those 21 years. What do you think of this year's Daytona 24 Hours of Endurance?
I've always wondered what it was like to be an old fellow, old fogey, so now I know. Well, I don't know what to think, really, Jim. It's been a long time, and I look forward to it. It's great to see all the different sorts of cars and a lot of the old friends and people that I haven't seen before, and all the new young fellows. We have an enormous team here. I hope we can handle it all. We have 9 different drivers and 3 cars, so it's going to be really exciting.
What about your old friend A.J. Foyt? He's here. He's running a little itchy palms. Going to be this weekend, standing there watching your cars go out. Maybe you wish you were out there with him?
Oh, yeah, I suppose you still get that feeling. I haven't seen A.J. yet. I know he's going to be here with Darrell Waltrip, and that'll be a talkative bunch of drivers anyway. Yeah.
Dan Gurney, who won the first one here, and he beat some very good company. The world champion Phil Hill that year was second, and Jim Hall placed third. Let's get back to Victory Lane. Standing by is Dave Despain, and maybe we can talk to another one of the winners.
We're with A.J. Foyt, who has had a lot of fun out there from the smile on his face that we've seen here. A.J., congratulations. It's good to be back in a sports car, apparently.
Well, it really is. It's been 15 years. I kind of enjoyed it. I plan on running the day shift to try to help the other boys out, and not necessarily the rain, but I felt like I could help them, and Preston asked me earlier in the week if something happened to the car, if I would come over, and I was just glad to be part of the team.
There was some speculation that a former Le Mans winner might have forgotten to drive, how to drive in the rain after all these years, but you had one of the quickest laps of the race out there. You obviously were very comfortable in the car.
It really was. You know, I knew nothing about the car. All I did was just kind of get in it and go, and with them already made up the time they did, and they was leading the race. I sure didn't want to mess up their strategy of winning the race, and so I just tried to do the best I could.
Any plans of a second career in sports car racing?
No, maybe another 15 years.
A.J., congratulations to you.
Thank you.
One of the great names in motorsports adds to the legend, A.J. Foyt in the winning car in the 24 Hours of Daytona.
Well, he's won Le Mans, he's won the Daytona 500, now he's won the Daytona 24, and of course, with 4 wins at Indianapolis, he stands as supreme in American motorsport. Claude Bellolina had finished second here on a previous occasion back in 1976, and Warlock had a third in 1977 in this same race. Let's take a look at some of the other standings here in the event. Taking a look first at the unofficial 24-hour finish, there is the first place going to Wallach, Foyt, Bellolina. Second place to the March automobile, and what a job Randy Lanier did in the rain with that car. Then came that Mazda RX-7, Rick Nuke doing a marvelous job, Pete Halsmer, the well-known rider in America, and Reed helping out there to finish third. Next in line came the number 24 car, and that was a Porsche with Ken Martin doing the finishing up chores as they came across the line. The fifth position was car number 50, and driving that car at the finish in the GTO category was Diego Febles in a Porsche automobile that also was second in the GTO class. Now those are the unofficial standings, and now taking a look at GTO, David Hobbs.
Well, Rick Knoop obviously won that class by coming third overall in his RX-7. Second in the class was 50 Valverde, Fonseca Fables in the Porsche that we've just mentioned, coming fifth overall. 05 Soto came third in that class, seventh overall. Garrettson, Baker, and Mullen came fourth in that class, and in fact came ninth overall as their number their car. And the 35 car was 10th overall and fifth in the GTO standings.
The GTU standings, the under 2.5 liters now.
Well, the leader, that was Lee Mueller in car number 92, who came 12th overall, which is a very good finish for them. Car number 90, Schaefer, Zitzer, and Refening came second in that class. Third was car number 60, which was Jim Cook, Ivy, and Dietrich. 38, Smith, Mandeville, and Birdsall. They had a lot of trouble in the night, and they came fourth in that class. And 63, Steve Potter, Downing, and Mafucci came fifth in that class.
The GTO and GTU classes are both won by Mazda for this year, while Porsche takes supreme for the 7th straight year in this 24-hour contest. We'll have more from the World Center of Speed, the Daytona International Speedway, after these messages. Back to victory lane, here's Dave Despain.
In the GTO category of this race, Pete Halsmer and Bob Reed teamed up with this guy who brought the car under the checkered flag. Rick Knoop, congratulations, a great GTO victory and third overall.
Thank you very much. I was fortunate enough to drive for the Mazda factory and Jim Meter and the Racing Beat team, and I had some very able help from Pete and Bob, and the car ran flawlessly all night.
No problems at all in the darkness?
No problems in the darkness. We had a couple of fuel lines that frayed last night, but very minor. It's a tribute to these guys at Mazda and Racing Beat, and we're just really proud to be here. Third overall for a GTO car is really neat.
What was your strategy and what was your objective here? How high did you think you could finish that smaller engine car?
Well, we were shooting for the top 5. Our strategy was to use 8,500 RPMs and let it run a little bit in fifth gear. The car ran absolutely beautifully. Tried to target lap times around 2:01 to 2:02, and it proved to be very successful. We were fifth overall after about the 4th hour.
A lot of rain out there. Any problems in the water?
Well, I didn't have too many problems. We came in and put some soft rains on this morning, and I could really fly. They gave me, when they red flagged the event, I took off, and I went past AJ on the restart. So to have my Mazda in front of Foyt and the rest of the boys over here was really a proud moment for me. But had some great gummies on, and then all of a sudden it dried up, and we put on some slicks, and it was a little bit squirrely towards the end.
Well, Rick, congratulations. You're glad you brought it home a winner.
Thank you very much.
Rick Knoop wins the GTO class with Pete Halsmer and Bob Reed, a California victory here at Daytona.
The 24 hours was stopped for its first time in history because of weather, and that seems rather unusual, Derek Bell.
Well, it certainly does. I've never been in a race that's been stopped by weather, I must admit. It's pretty awful driving in those conditions. Whether they should have stopped it sooner or whether they should have stopped it at all, I don't really know. But, 24 hours is 24 hours, and you've got to continue right to the bitter end.
Well, Charlie Rainville, the chief steward of the International Motorsports Association, deemed the track unsafe, and he just put the flag out. I can remember in the old days, Nino Vaccarello running at Sebring in water with a car hydroplaned at 5 miles an hour years ago.
Yes, well, in fact, I was at Le Mans just 2 years ago, and there was so much water in the first 2 hours, the only way we could see where we were going down the Mulsanne Straight was actually to look at the tops of the trees and point the car down the middle of the road between them.
I would call that a good call. I mean, there was nothing more to be proved there, and there was the chance that we could really ruin a car, and perhaps more so, David Hobbs.
Oh, yeah, the rain was exceptionally heavy, and it, as I said before, funny enough, ironically here, the safest place to be in those conditions with the rain tires is on the banking because the water all runs off there. But it collects fearsomely at two main corners, the entry onto the infield and the exit, and it was really, really deep, and I think they had no option really but to stop it.
The pictures for the scrapbooks continue to be taken in Victory Lane among the various categories of competition as we conclude this 24-hour contest. It's one that has had everything, and we'll tell you more about it in just a moment as to how we came to this end at 3:30 on this Sunday afternoon. Right now, let's pause for these messages from the Superstation WTBS. This race has everyone in it, professors, millionaires, women, and indeed the women did very well. 13th overall and 6th in the GTO class went to the car entered by Brumos Porsche, and Dave Despain is standing by with that story.
Deborah Gregg is with us in Victory Lane, and Deborah, you've carried on the Brumos name quite effectively. It was a good drive here for the all-woman team you assembled. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Were you surprised at all at how well you did?
Well, we were quite surprised in how smooth all our pit stops seemed to go. I think that probably never in the history of Brumos racing that we had pretty much an uneventful the pit dramas.
The age of women's liberation and all the talk of women's liberation has abated a little bit. Did the three of you feel you were trying to prove something out there, or are you all three just racers?
We're just racers. That's all I think.
You did very well. Congratulations. Where do you go from here?
Well, from here we're going to Sebring in the 12 hours of Sebring.
Deborah Gregg, who had a fine drive in the all-woman team here in the 24 hours.
There were so many stories in this 24 hours. The V12 Jaguar, Bob Tullius, a big surprise early getting out in front. The Aiken car, the Porsche, demolished at 190 miles an hour in the wall early in the going. The Ferrari, the 512 Berlinetta, which looked like it was going to win about 11 o'clock last night and then went away. But the real story of this race, well, it began with Darrell Waltrip and a guy named Foyt driving in Aston Martin. But by dawn, he had changed the whole complexion of this race. For wherever he goes, A.J. Foyt is the story. It was early in the morning. An angry Wallach stepping out of the car, A.J. Foyt getting in.
Drive at Ballolinas, in fact, putting A.J. Foyt in the car for the very first time. A.J. Foyt is sitting in a Porsche 935 Turbo, a car he's never sat in his life before. He hasn't raced in a sports car race for some 15 years. They're cleaning the windscreen, putting some anti-mist on the inside.
A.J. Foyt coming onto the track and now picking up speed. And was he to pick up speed? Oh, my. Before it was over, the fastest lap in the race was turned in the rain in a torrential downpour by Foyt. Here is Foyt way back 15 years ago with his old friend Dan Gurney when they did it all in 1967 at Le Mans. Remember those kind of starts? Well, they're a part of motorsports history now, and Gurney and Foyt were always a part of it. Since those early days when he came up through the midgets and the sprint cars, they said he was a roundy-rounder. It was here at Le Mans that A.J. Foyt proved to everyone in the world that he was something very special when he gave Ford their victory in this event. There's the Mulsanne Straight, better than 230 miles per hour. And it was the American flag that carried that day. There was anger here today when A.J. Foyt took over that car. Bob Wallach was not happy.
Bob, you've just driven one of the toughest races of your life, coming from about 15 laps down to 2 laps in the lead. How do you feel about a complete stranger to you getting in that car in this rain?
Well, I'm upset about it because he doesn't know the car, he doesn't know the rain, he doesn't know anything. And we have been working very hard because we had two turbos broken early on, and we were about 12 laps behind. Now we are 1 lap leading, and Mr. A.J. Foyt is driving for the PR. I'm upset about it.
Bob Wallach, very upset. He had brought the car all the way back. It had been so far back it had been counted out. And then they put Supertex in it, but he didn't know how good this guy can be. A.J. Foyt, the master, the magician in an automobile, bringing the car up, staying out in front, and turning those amazing laps in the race. There's always been controversy wherever Foyt goes. But wherever Foyt goes, there's usually a checkered flag. And interesting today, the great patron of the A.J. Foyt team, Jim Gilmore, flew in this morning to see the car run, and he saw A.J. Foyt a winner once again for the first time in the 24 hours of Daytona. It always sounds like you're just getting a little waxing on about A.J. Foyt, but really, he is American racing.
I didn't even know he was in the race with this.
I'll tell you, Waltrip says that next year they're going to bring a car here with Junior Johnson as the pit crew to see if they can win it with an All-American team.
Well, that wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, I can tell you. To be a pretty formidable team with those two and Junior Johnson running the car, especially here.
Talking about teamwork, you know that old slogan about neither rain nor snow nor sleet nor dark of night shall keep these messengers from their appointed rounds? Well, it certainly goes with this event, but I hate to be self-serving about this. I truly must tell you that the crew from WTBS has done an absolutely magnificent job with this race. We've had every condition. We burned them up in the sun yesterday. It nearly froze them last night. We had torrential downpours and all kinds of the problems that go on with racing, but they've come through magnificently to bring you the story over the past 24 hours of this race. Well, where do you people head on to next? Derek?
Well, I'm going back to Europe. I'm testing the new Le Mans car next week for Porsche, and then back out for the Miami Grand Prix.
Ah, and Hobbs?
Well, I'm going to Riverside, California tonight to test John Fitzpatrick's new 956 Porsche for the World Endurance Championship, which will be running in Europe. Then I'm going to see a team in Portland, Oregon to try and do some racing over here during the summer, and back here for next week's extravaganza on the TV, and then to Miami for the same race as Derek.
And Dave Despain is on with Motor Week Illustrated, of course, and right now he's standing by in Victory Lane with a late report.
A very happy Lee Mueller has brought home the gold in the GTU division. You're the happiest guy out here, Lee.
Right, this is so great for Kent Racing and Firestone Tire and good old Camel, because this is a culmination of a year of frustration for all of us, and we won on a street radial tire. Nobody's ever done it. We did it with Mazda, Kent Racing, all the fans here. It's been fabulous.
Congratulations to you, Lee.
Thank you, thank you.
GTU the winner. Lee Mueller.
The 24 hours of Daytona has been completed. We'd like to thank our announcers, Dave Despain, Mike Joy, David Kopp, Jerry Garrett, David Hobbs, and Derek Bell for the job they have done through this 24-hour jaunt that has marked another of those great traditional battles that is endurance racing. A magnificent chess game played out with these great racing cars, the hybrids and the not-so-hybrids. And coming through, A.J. Foyt with Porsche does it in this one for Preston Henn with Bob Willick and Claude Bellolina. Thank you for being with us. I'm Ken Squire.